Well, good morning. This is our new project. It's a 1993 Softail custom. Someone else started the project and it had been sitting around for quite a few years. And now we're going to finish it up. It's going to be kind of a cool project. I think it's sentimental to the family. First thing we're going to do is make a parts list to see what we need. We're going to flush the oil tank, clean up some of the wiring, check the drive belt, see what kind of condition it is in, and basically go through the bike, see what we need to order, get a parts list going. This here is the Ultima 127 engine we're going to be using. We're going to be using a Rivera Pro Clutch, and like I said already, we're going to go through all these pieces, see what we got, and go from there. I'm going to check this belt here. Slowly spin it through. Make sure there's no rocks in it. No cracks anywhere. Top looks pretty good. Doesn't look like too bad of a belt. I'm gonna have to replace these seals probably. I'd say we could probably reuse this belt. Pull this exhaust muffler off this morning, pull this inner fender splash guard off, take the old circuit breaker out, and take the wiring out because we're going to replace the voltage regulator, and the main power wire for the voltage regulator goes to your main 30 amp circuit breaker on your inner splash guard. You might have to pull the wheel off, but we'll try first bolts holding the inner splash guard off. You can get them sometimes with a 7/16 socket and a swivel. Oil tank, we're going to pull it out now and flush it. This old motor, who knows what kind of crap was in there. So we want to get all the steel and garbage out of this oil tank for our fresh motor. There's a nut here. There's a nut on this little bracket right here on this side. You can see here, there's a nut right there and one on this side here as well. And then the tank will just kind of slide out this side here, making sure your drain oil hose comes out with it. So these oil tanks are a little tricky to flush out, just the way the nipples are welded inside. There's a little shoulder, so I like to get all these old dried out rubber hoses off and start with new. It'll make it easier to flush it out. We're going to use gas. Swish it around, swish it around. We're going to have a magnet that's tied to a string laying in there. So anything that does stick to it, we can pull out with the magnet, and then we'll go from there. Last couple flushes on the oil tank, I like to use a brake and parts cleaner that's clear. And then once you're sure that your tank is clean, throw down some white paper towel. Give it a shake and drain your last tank on that white paper towel. If you think it was clean, take another look how much crap was still in there. This stuff here, I don't know if you guys can see it. Those little pieces you can see there are shiny and have been discolored. To me, I would say that's hard surfacing from a bearing. And if you pump any of that through your motor, it's gonna kill it real quick. So you gotta keep flushing that until you get no more stuff on your white paper towel. So you guys know this took me about an hour to flush out to make sure that where I felt comfortable that this was clean. Not clean enough, but clean. Took me about a jug and a half of brake glass to clean it, and half a roll of paper towel. If you guys are in a hurry to build motors, you're probably in the wrong career. Now that you've got your engine mounts cleaned up, clutch cable and brake reservoir, anything else out of the way, we're gonna set this motor in here, and I'll show you how to really throw out your back really good. That big girl's in there pretty tight, but she's gonna work nice. You got your motor in there. You wanna put your 4 bolts that are holding it down in there, but you don't wanna tighten them up. And the reason for that is you wanna put your inside primary half on first and tighten it up to the tranny and to the motor. And what that's gonna do is square everything up. And then you can put your, tighten up your main mounts for your engine after you've put your inner primary on and squared everything up. Now before we get our primary on, we're gonna replace this 30-some-year-old race for the main bearing on the primary. And pull this locking plate off with the 2 3/16 head Allen retaining screws. And pull the main nut off the drive sprocket so we can pull the sprocket out of the way and inspect our seals. Replace those seals if need be. If you're a faithful viewer, which I hope you all are, and I hope you're getting all your friends hooked by now too. I'm sure you've seen me use this tool before from gyms to pull this inner race off real nicely. It's just pressed on and pulled off. Basically, I put this big crescent wrench on here to hold it all. Then with a 3/4 inch wrench, we just put a little tension on there and pull her off. Main nut off, which is reverse thread. Pop that pulley off. Slide your belt out of the way. And we'll just have a look and see. You can see how wet everything is. So we're gonna replace all the seals. Not a very nice looking trining oil. You can see all the water in it. Definitely change it more often. When you pull your 5th gear seal out, you wanna be real careful. This one's very loose, surprisingly. I've never seen that yet. But when you pull it out, you wanna be very careful not to wreck your main input shaft here. If you score that up, you're never ever gonna have a seal. You're putting your 5th gear seal back on. You want to make sure you cover up these splines so you don't cut your seal when you slide it over top. A little masking tape is sufficient. Before you put your inner race back on, you want to make sure you put your little square quad seal in there. It'll just slide in there nice. The one side of your race is tapered. That's the slide towards your quad seal. Before you put your main seal in, you want to slide your race on there. It's a lot easier to do it now than after. Slide it on like this. And just push it in by hand. It's big enough, it'll push right in there. This nut only goes on one way. You can see this side, it has a shoulder. That's the side that goes towards your sprocket. Put some red Loctite on there. Just a little bit, of course, so that it never comes loose. And spin it back on there. This is reverse thread, so lefty tighty. Initial torque is 50 foot-pounds. Once you've tightened it to 50 foot-pounds, you want to mark your socket and your pulley at about 45 degrees. 45 degrees is 1/4 of a turn. So then we're going to tighten it up another 45 degrees. You can see how critical it is to have that plate lined up properly. Once you have it about 30 to 45 degrees, you want to fit that plate to see where those holes line up, and then run your bolts in that hold that down. They torque to about 100, 110. Plate bolts are tightened to 110 inch-pounds. You want to make sure you take your sprocket locking tool out. So now we're not going to do any more on the other side until I've got some parts that we're waiting on. You can see we put the throttle cables on. You crack your throttle wide open. You want to make sure butterfly plate is straight, horizontal, closes on its own. Now we're going to put our air cleaner backing plate on and get that assembled. Putting these bolts in, want to make sure you put a little bit of red Loctite because you don't want them coming out for sure. you get that all together, you want to make sure you check your choke lever here works properly. This one's binding somewhere, so we're gonna have to tear this apart and see. Well, that's it for day one of the Monster Softail build. Check back soon here for day two, and we'll show you as we reassemble the rest of this bike. Make sure you like this video, share it with your friends, and subscribe. And we'll see you next time, guys. Thanks, and have a great night.